Workers of Reddit, when have you said, "F this, I quit"? Company I worked for promised a retreat in Hawaii because we hit our sales targets. 2 weeks before the trip, they say it's been canceled, with no plans to pay us out for the pooled bonus that would have went towards that trip. On the weekend of the trip, a manager posts a photo of her and other managers in Hawaii. But oh no, it wasn't work-related. They said it was for a manager's birthday, even though one of the managers that went absolutely hates the one who was allegedly celebrating the birthday. Quit shortly after. Story 2. I was hired for a college to run their office, where students got hands-on work in the field. When I discovered that they were ripping off students' hours, I started providing students copies of their hours and telling them to keep a notebook with the copies for their records. See, the students were on a contract that if they didn't graduate by the date estimated for completion, students were required to pay $200 every additional week it took to complete among suspensions, which in turn went against contract graduation date. They also asked me to falsify a report of students' absences to suspend them, even though I had documented proof the student was in class. I decided to leave that job, but not before telling students to report them to the state board and providing statements for the lawyer who the students gathered to represent their case. Story 3. Previous workplace gave me a promotion to sales lead. Buried in the fine text was a line that read "Sogrugsing" to the effect of, "If there isn't an actual manager around, you become the manager on duty." Didn't think anything of it until they conveniently fired my direct manager a week later, didn't replace her, and expected me to do all the work she used to without a promotion or pay raise. Comment: became a sales lead at a pretty popular store for young adults and teens. Despite it being directly against company rules, I was then forced by the store manager to close every single night of the week so that she could get off early to be with her kid. Company policy said that no manager could close more than 2 nights in a row. I did it for a month and a half and pieced the duck out the moment I got a job offer that offered 45 hours a week with a regular schedule and days off. A friend got promoted to my sales lead position a month later. They did the same thing and didn't let her go home to see her dying dad, and the manager fired her for asking for time off despite closing every night for 3 months straight. She tried to file unemployment, and the store manager reported that she quit so she couldn't collect. That manager was a piece of crap. Story 4. I was the IT department for a small company. A few times I would go to the owners' places and work on their computers there, set up VPNs back to the office, etc. Didn't take long for that to morph into, "Come over tonight. My teenage daughter has an essay due and the printer isn't working. And little Johnny got his computer loaded with viruses again. Come fix it." I didn't get paid extra for the house calls. When I finally said, "Duck it, I quit," they wouldn't accept my resignation, as though they had a choice. So I wrote a bridge-burning letter detailing why I was leaving. House calls was the only point in the letter that they took issue with. Edit: holy crap, this exploded. I actually just remembered the part that threw me over the top. House calls were annoying, but this was almost 20 years ago. We ran a lot of promotions and collected a lot of information about retailers. One of the company's main assets is this thorough list of small independent retailers in our market segment. We had more and better data than Google at the time. We started a new arm of the company which was only peripherally related to this. In order to get the word out, they wanted to contact this list. Things like MailChimp didn't exist yet, and many of the retailers didn't have email. We contacted them via fax. So I was asked to write a spamming program. The privacy policy under which we collected the retailer data explicitly forbade us from using the data in this way. One of the owners was also the legal counsel. He said, "Do it anyway. Shady business be shady." This all came to a head around the same time as the house calls. I did write the spam bot, but I did not document any of it before I left, so hopefully they never figured it out how to use it. Story 5. HR dude calls on Friday at 6 p.m. "Hey, I'm really sorry the insurance company won't cover you until you're an employee for 60 days. Me. "That's a shame. Since you promised that you'd cover me and children right away, that you'd arrange the 60 days going to not apply to me, and I told you that was a condition for me accepting this job. Also, my son's surgery is literally on Monday, in 2 days, and he was shocked that I quit the next week, just totally livid that I gave a week's notice. You know this means you'll never work here again. Yeah, Jorge, that's the ducking point." Comment: so Grugsing similar happened to my husband. He switched to a new job about a month before I was due to give birth to our second child, and his new benefits weren't going to kick in for 60 days after his first day. He was told in his interviews by the company that they would waive that and give him access to health benefits 30 days after his first day, ensuring that I would be covered by health insurance when I gave birth. Well, a week into his new job, HR let him know that they couldn't make that exception, and his health benefits would start after 60 days. We had to pay for the birth out of pocket, and it was an effing. Story 6. I used to work as some kind of aid worker, rescuer, in events with large gathering of people. concerts, festivals, etc. The boss owner always put her head down for the clients and allowed them to exploit us. One of the regular clients was the event manager of a popular stadium. They would ask us to be in the stadium 3 hours prior the event to clean. Yup. And stay afterwards to clean. Yup. The manager wasn't paying more money for it, but the boss didn't want to lose the client, so we just have to do it. So, there would be events with that. Took 16 hours to complete with a menial pay, no food or beverage, and with the client expecting us to do more work for free. Note, I've never did that and always encouraged my partners to leave. It wasn't our job to clean. But the moment that made me say, "Duck this crap," was when the boss called me saying that the client emailed her with a complaint about me. I thought it would be about me and my team always leaving after the job was done and not staying for cleaning. But no, they told me that they always see you chatting with your partner. And with a smile. They don't want the attendants to see their workers distracted and or laughing. They want to show that only professionals work with them. So they are asking that you turn down a notch your positive attitude and keep a poker face all the time. Story 7. I got hired at Kmart to work in sporting goods. Was told to wear the traditional black pants and red polo. Day 1. Sorry, we can't train you for sporting goods today. We need you to help unload trucks. It's summer in SC. It's 100 degrees and 80% humidity. I'm wearing black pants and a thick polo. No change of clothes. End of day. Sorry about today. We'll start training you tomorrow. Come to work in uniform again. Day 2, same thing. Day 3, same thing. Day 4, same thing. Day 5, same thing. Day 6, same thing. Day 7, I came in on my day off to quit. If I wasn't dumb and 17, I probably would have just wised up and brought a change of clothes. I didn't mind unloading the truck, although the sweat-drenched clothes weren't ideal. The real reason I quit was the obvious lack of planning and management. Story 8, I don't quit. I just start not giving a duck and try to see how long I can keep cashing checks before I'm forced to leave. If you don't like your job, you don't strike. You just go in every day and do it really half-assed. That's the American way. Homer Simpson. But seriously though, you're a crap boss and you get paid to be a crap boss. So I'ma be a crap employee until you decide to can my ass. Although usually I'll be looking for a new job during this how long can I get away with this phase. So I'm not screwed with the day comes. Story 9. Worked at a mall retail store in college for a couple years. When I was just a lowly peasant, the manager was great to work for. Once I became a key holder is when things changed. I learned very quickly why the other key holders didn't last. The manager would make rash decisions that would then be blamed on everyone but her. Last straw was when the evening shift didn't change out some signage and I get in the next morning having no idea there was new signage to be put out. She came in and berated me about the signage not being updated. I walked in the back, dropped my keys off, told her I quit, and went to walk out. She grabbed me and told me I need to give a written notice and fax it to corporate. To whom it may concern, I terminate my employment effective immediately due to manager's inability to properly treat staff. Faxed it and walked out. She read it after I'd already sent it and chased me out berating me, more claiming I would never get another retail job in this mall. Blah, blah, blah. 3 weeks later, I started at another store in that mall and always made it a point to smile and wave at her when I saw her. Story 10. I used to work at McDonald's. I know. Opening usually involved me at the front counter with a headset on so I could do drive-through orders and handle making coffee. Putting orders together, taking money at the front from the little old people that came in at the crack of dawn every morning. We would also have a manager who was there to be important and one person in the kitchen. We're a small rural town, so usually this is fine, but we were on kind of a major highway, so sometimes it would get busy out of nowhere. Depending on the manager, the amount of help we had would vary wildly. One morning we got super busy, and I started cracking under the pressure. I'm a fantastic multitasker, but my drive-through line was backing up since I was trying to juggle them and all the walk-in folks from my front registers, and when it gets packed, well, it's fun. I glance around trying to find my manager for help. I see him on one of our cameras. He's outside smoking a cigarette around the side of the building. Mind you, this is like his 3rd trip out to smoke this morning. I'm absolutely dying trying to get caught up. Customers are being passive-aggressive, saying they will come behind the counter and get their own coffee and stuff. I have people yelling at me in my headset from the drive-thru. I end up having to remove the headset just to try to get the front line sorted. I start making progress with the front, but I basically had to sacrifice the drive-thru customers for 2 minutes. Apparently, the cars outside start yelling at my manager and interrupt his smoke break, so he comes in, sees me with my headset off, and goes berserk. He's like, "Who's taking the drive-through orders?" I'm in the middle of trying to get a fresh pot of coffee going, so I sort of auto-respond, "No one, hang on," as I continue to dash around behind our counter to grab a fruit and yogurt parfait for an order. He basically gets in my way and starts giving me crap, loudly talking to me like I'm a dog. I point to the camera and yell, loudly enough to disrupt the entire inside of the restaurant. "I'm these 2 registers, first window, second window, and I'm bagging. I'm like 4 people, and you're out behind the building not doing schmidt." His eyes go wide. I can tell he knows I'm holding on by my last thread. He sighs, and he's like, "You're in a ton of trouble, but we can talk about this later." No. Duck him. I'm done. I'm all riled up from random customers yelling at me. I toss him the headset. "You want to give me crap for not being able to run like 4 stations with no support? Run 5. I'll watch." I remove my name badge. He went to say "so grugzing" to me. I turn away, facing the one girl working in the kitchen who is watching this all play out. I remember telling her, "I'm so sorry." And then I dropped my name badge, toss my hat on the counter, grab a water cup, put on, and zip my jacket so my uniform is covered up. I go to the drink fountain, fill my water cup, and then I go sit on the far side of the seating area and watch him go down in flames. He ends up also taking off the headset and picking up the phone so he can spam call the whole workforce one by one trying to call for help. It's like 5 a.m., so no one is going to accept a call from their work number. About 10 minutes into his struggle, he ends up very loudly pleading with me to come back from behind the counter. I can't even see him on the other side of the sea of people swarming the counter at this point. I call back, "I need a smoke first," and I go outside. I don't smoke. I've never smoked. I drive home. He ended up losing his job. Story 11. I asked month in advance for time off during a Friday. I was approved. The fateful Friday came around, and everybody I worked with, 4 of us, were also approved for time off. We all had the same event to attend. The manager calls me the night before and tells me that I need to come in. I told him I had already made the plans and that I was approved months ago with emails to show for it. He responded by telling me if I didn't show, I'd be fired. I just didn't go. Duck you, Jason. Comment. I quit after working for 4 hours at a sushi restaurant. I asked where the bathroom was, and I was told, "We don't really get bathroom breaks." I left right then and never came back. It was pretty sad. The manager said he understood and wasn't mad at all. Story 12. I wrote this before on another post, but it fits here too. I used to work nights as a cashier at a deli convenience store. Pretty chill job. The manager who worked during the day quit, so my boss asked me to switch and handle manager's responsibilities. I said sure, with a pay raise. He assured me it would only be for a week. So I said, fine, I'll do you the favor. So now, I would work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. during the week and 6 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. during the weekends. The new times also involved a lot more work. I would literally be running the entire store myself, including orders, deliveries, inventory, a bunch of other things that I was not getting paid to do. Should also note that my boss didn't even know how to work the register, let alone anything else that needed to be done. Well, that week turned into a month. I went back into his office, which was a supply closet with a computer in it, to discuss a pay raise, and he asked to take me out to dinner to discuss it. I said no, told him he had another week to find someone. Next week goes by and it's a Friday. I go up to him and ask him for either a raise or some sort of bonus for all that I've done. He asks about dinner again and I say no. He then says no to the raise or bonus. So I told him I quit. He can show up tomorrow and Sunday 6 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. because I won't be there. I'm telling this to the man who doesn't know how to open the register. I walk away and go back to the register. He comes up to me 10 minutes later, opens his wallet, and pulls out a $100 bill and gives it to me as my bonus. I take it, put it in my purse, and say, thank you. I'm still quitting, though. The look on his face was amazing. An hour later, I pay myself for the week and left. Story 13. I used to work at IHOP as a server. Our manager was wildly incompetent. She would leave with the manager card, which was the only way to correct an order, refund Grugzing, etc. She was spiteful and stupid. A deadly combination. So I was poor and had a raggedy pair of the non-slip escorts you're supposed to wear in food service. I also had a pair of Doc Marten work escorts that were slip/oil/electric proof, same color and all. She made a big stink about me not wearing the correct escorts. I explained they were on their last leg and that even though the docs were technically not regulation, that they fit the criteria. They even said it on the sole. So she threatens to fire me over these ducking escorts and I cave and wear the crafty escorts to work. Saturday night, packed to the gills. Not a seat in the house. Halfway into my nightmare understaffed shift, as I'm carrying an appetizer sampler and a tray of drinks to a table, the sole rips from the upper and I trip and spill the whole ducking sampler on the table. Ranch, honey mustard, marinara, 4 Dr. Peppers, all over me and a couple. Face and all, I freak out and apologize. Explain, I'll comp the food and go to find the manager. Guess who went home? With that almighty card, you need to void checks or discount them. I also had about 5 other tables suffering who saw all this happen. I call her. She's at home. Lives 15 mins away. I told her not to bother. Asked her how she could be so ducking stupid to go home with the card for the 10,000th time. Screamed about the damn escorts, etc. And told her to go duck herself. Took my tips out of the cash I had. Told all my customers their meals were on the house. And stripped down to my underwear right there in the parking lot. Walked to my car and changed my clothes. Never looked back. Comment. I got hired in a custom fabrication shop as one of their 2 welders. Boss promises to have me learn a bit of everything. Machining, water jet, design. but barely even had me do any welding, on top of being a massive to everyone. Talked crap about us to customers while we were working right next to him. Got hired at a different company Thursday evening, other welder quit Friday morning, I quit Friday at lunch. Felt real good leaving them up Crap Creek. Story 14. Years ago, I worked in a restaurant and it was Christmas time. This place was supposed to function with 4 waitresses, a busboy, dishwasher, manager, and 2 cooks. Only the manager and I showed up. He did the cooking, I took orders, served, bussed tables, washed dishes, and so on. During this, I accidentally dropped 2 bread plates and they broke. Manager says to me, "I'll have to take those out of your pay." I told him that was funny, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. I turned around and grabbed a stack of dinner plates, threw them on the floor and said, "Take those out of my pay too," and walked out to leave him with the whole mess. Story 15. Was working 70-hour weeks alongside 2 other people at a video game gig in California. The other 2 people quit because of the work hours. I was working 110 hours a week for several months to keep things going. I was told there was a hiring freeze, which was why they couldn't backfill my 2 coworkers. Eventually, they moved 2 junior people in under me and gave me a promotion on paper only, no raise to manage them. I quit when I found out that each of them was making $20K more than I was. Edit. For those asking, no, it wasn't Telltale or Rockstar, and no, this isn't crap. Story 16. I once worked as an air quality monitor. We would primarily get involved with sewage contractors. One day we're on a job and there's these huge cylindrical digestion tanks with tons and tons of human crap inside of them. They were each around 30 feet tall. One of the contractors had to perform work on the roof of one of these tanks. I was to be harnessed and standing beside the guy monitoring for any vakes. There were concerns that the roof would collapse, and even though I was harnessed, I would literally fall into a huge pile of boiling *** bubbling crap. I said, "Duck this, I quit." Story 17. I've worked in retail part-time since I was 16. In my first job, they started introducing a punishment system for when team members didn't make their target. Thankfully, it never happened to me. But one day, a manager posted on our staff Facebook page a video of them throwing a bucket of water over an employee who didn't make his target, purely for everyone else to laugh at. This didn't happen with any of the other punishments. He had worked there 10 years. He was a stockroom member, so wouldn't even be on the shop floor to make the target set for him, as all targets for every member were sales-based. Even if you weren't a sales member, because if it was busy, there was a chance you would have to go on the shop floor and help. He had taken off his cescorts and placed them to the side so they didn't get wet. He did this because he had to get 2 buses to and from work every day. That was my official duck this moment and quit after that. Story 18. When I was 14, I wanted a summer job with my best friend. We went to the fast food shop at the beachside. It was quite popular since it was the only fast food around. We get there on a Friday afternoon and we meet the owner. 50-saugrugsing man with a big belly from probably the fast food he serves. Tells us we can get there the next morning and people would show us around. We get there at 9 a.m. like he told us, and there was no one. First employees arrive at 10:30 to open. They have no idea we were supposed to work. They tried to help us the most they could, but they were cashier with no training for the food stuff. Both their cooks left that week, and the owner was doing all the work. We finish our first day without any trouble. Slow day overall. Sunday arrive, and we are not prepared for the sheer number of customer. We still have about no idea how to cook the food and how the equipment worked. Owner arrived with a bunch of his friends. We were swamped with people, but he shoved them around a bit and asked us to do 6 hot dogs, 6 fries, and 6 Diet Cokes and fast. We knew it was for him, so we told people to wait and we finished their order. Not 30 seconds after the owner comes back behind the counter and begin to tell us we are crap at our job and that the fries were not cooked enough and that we messed the condiments on the hot dogs. Mind you, there were a lot of customers waiting for their food at that point, and they were all looking at us getting yelled at by the owner. I looked to my friend. He looked at me, and we both knew what to do. We took our aprons off and told him to duck off. We left him with all the orders right there, and then never went back there. They closed down about 2 years after. Story 19. I was working at a company for only a few months when things started to get bad. I had direct deposit set up, and I was away on vacation when payday came around. My paycheck didn't drop in my bank account. Okay, interesting. I texted a coworker and the boss said that the new assistant forget to approve it. This happened for the next 3 pay periods. I had to go to my boss every payday to try and get her to cut my check. Some days she would leave early and tell us she totally forgot. That following Monday, she comes in and is showing off a new car she bought over the weekend. Right there, I told her I will not be coming back into work and I would like my final pay. I didn't say duck this, I quit. But I sure as hell should have. No way was I even going to give her the decency of 2 weeks' notice either. Who the hell buys a new car when you're struggling to pay your employees? Arg still gets me mad. Story 20. I had worked Sanitation University for 23 years. There were over 7,700 staff, and I think I had met half of them by then. Working as a senior field at Tech, was awesome for the first 20 years. They were very flexible, and I had lots of side gigs. In the end, the bean counters came in and made things more efficient by outsourcing many tasks. Usually they were the fun things. The last year was very repetitive and mundane. Lots of problems that we couldn't fix because they were someone else's problem. One day I came in and attempted to resolve 7 different problems. And I was shut down on each because they each had their own team of people whose responsibility it was. I said, "Duck this. What do you need me for?" Went straight to HR to quit. Belinda, the HR manager, was not you typical cliched type. I'd fixed her PC before and knew her. She said, "Don't quit today, take the weekend, wait until Monday and see how you feel then." I took her advice, temporarily retracting my signed resignation, and went home. On Monday, the largest round of redundancies were announced in the university's long history. Because of the enterprise bargaining agreement, the payouts were incredible. My accountant, when he saw how much was being offered, suggested they had made a mistake and called on my behalf to check if it was correct. It was. Effectively 2 years' salary after tax. I would have missed out if Belinda had accepted my resignation. Story 21. I'm getting real asterisk, close to that at my current job. Helping rebuild an e-commerce store that was mismanaged by a contractor who, through 2 botched replatforms in the span of 6 months, managed to erase 10 years of marketing efforts which reduced traffic and sales by 88%. New owner of the company thinks that the website can generate $300K a month in sales in short order, despite my continuous objections, and how that's well over twice of what it generated a month when it was at its height. Dude does not get it, isn't listening, and has delusional expectations. Edit, holy crap, this took off. Story 22. I once spent 6 hours fixing an error in my code that stemmed from me misplacing a space. That was when I realized that one. I hated this job. And 2, I'm seriously not cut out for this if I could waste 6 hours on this kind of error on my part. I quit a week later after I got another offer. Edit. It was Perl 15 years ago, in case you were wondering. It was a regex that was supposed to write over a file upon command. Debuggers were terrible back then, but honestly, I was just bad at the job. Story 23. I got skipped on a guaranteed bonus. Company performance, not mine. Even though I fell well within the requirements. It wasn't a ton of money, but I felt slighted. They felt like they owned me. Little did they know my clients had been scouting me as an employee. I was a contractor. So I already had jobs ready for me at better pay. I quit and took the job with my client, effectively killing the contract renewal with my old company. My boss pleaded with me to stay and offered even a higher salary. I told me if I was worth more than the bonus before I quit, how come you didn't offer it to me then? I'm quitting on principle, not for the money. This job offer existed before your slight. They still get excited when I call for a referral thinking I'm coming back. Nope, sorry. Story 24. I was hired by a company that recruited me hard. During the interviews, they kept telling me I would be a great fit and was the right man for the job. I truly believe they thought that because they paid me a crap ton of money, which is why I accepted the job. It's a long story, but after a month, I knew I wasn't capable of doing the job, and they decided to leave a lot of those job descriptions out during the interview. I was confused, angry, annoyed, etc. I spent the next 4 months applying for other jobs and going through interviews while I was still working there, and I just told them I was visiting customers. I started at a new job, and they kept paying me until they realized I didn't work there anymore. I have no shame. Story 25. I worked in an outgoing call center for 1 day and 1 hour. It was ringing up small business owners trying to get them to do a survey. I spent several hours being told, justified IMO, to duck off. If you weren't dialing a new number as soon as you'd ended a call, the management were on your back. In our opening script, we told them the survey was 10-15 minutes. The one time I got someone to do it, he was asking how long was left at about 25 mins. It was ducking miserable. The second day, I got in, spent an hour being told to duck off, justified, then just stood up and walked out. I'd rather eat 7p packets of noodles than do that crap. Story 26. Being told that after a year and a half of doing everything for the company, I was the admin assistant, organized all the sales and purchasing, did all of their accounting and everything in between, I was a piece of crap, and I wasn't worth my pay, and that the girl they just hired was worth more than me. Resigned that day and never looked back. Story 27. Her wouldn't deal with a woman that started to hit me at work. It was a call center. And this one woman just took issue with me because I had social anxiety and would kick me under our workstation. My leg was bruised pretty badly. Hearted nothing and didn't take me seriously and thought I was emotional. I walked out and was told never to come back. Story 28. After being refused for the 4th time after being promised a raise because of being assigned parts of the jobs of 5 higher paid people who had been let go, I said, if this, I retire. But first I took off 2 months to have an elective surgery under their health insurance. I was first promised the raise as of Thanksgiving, then December 1st, then Christmas, and finally the end of January to give management enough time to do the paperwork. The 1st of February, they told me that unfortunately, I would not be getting the raise. Story 29. was a cell phone tower climber. Winds were pretty high, right on the edge of where we should have called the day off. Foreman was a drunk whose wife thought he was sober. He would close the bar down every night we were on the road, as did most of the climbers. A few hours in the winds keep getting gustier. Foreman wants to finish the job. By the end, I remember just trying to get the cable stable on the tower, leaning off as far as I could to bring it back in, and then pinning it to the steel, while my coworker attached it to the tower. Mind you, this is heavy cable, a bit more than a pound per foot up a 300-foot tower. Those things get moving. If it falls and gets damaged, it's expensive, and if it hits someone, they're going to the air. I kept my calm through the day, but it wasn't the first day of overlooking as many safety precautions as possible. People free climbing, dropping tools from height, etc. Obnoxiously, the pay wasn't even good. The cell phone companies contract out to construction management firms, who contract to smaller fly-by-night crews. There's no money at the bottom of that crappy ladder. Story 30. I worked at a family friend's bar as the kitchen manager. It wasn't very big, and usually it wasn't overly packed. They fired 2 cooks, and I was on my 6th week straight with no days off and no paid overtime. I was closing, and the kitchen closed a few hours before the bar closed. The kitchen had been closed for over 40 minutes when I hear the printer spit out an order. I go out to the bartender and was like, WTF. Ah, he's a regular, and I didn't think you would mind. So pissed off, I go turn everything on and start his order. After about 2 minutes of cooking, I'm like, what the actual duck am I doing? I walked straight inside to the manager and simply said, I'm done. He goes, what do you mean you're done? I repeat, I'm done, turn around and walk out the back and get in my car. He comes running up and was like, really? Yeah, I'm ducking out of here. This crap isn't worth it, and drove home. Story 31. I worked as lead CNC machinist for a job shop. And when a supervisor position opened up, they hired a 20-Sogrugzing kid that was the son of friends of the general manager, who constantly covered up his incompetence. The kid knew next to nothing about CNC machining, but was given the job of writing the code, doing setups, etc. I often spent more of my time rewriting the code and fixing the improper setups than getting any production done. One day, the kid substituted a smaller drill on a lathe and offset the location from center to drill a hole, rather than use the proper drill size. This was in a high nickel marine grade stainless steel, which is hard on tools to begin with. This was a time-critical job, and he had failed to pre-order the right tools. But rather than admit he screwed up and go get the right drill from a local supplier real quick, just kludged it, knowing that he would never be blamed. He then left for the day, knowing that it was going to fail. The drill blew right on schedule, and the general manager started screaming at me, as usual. The look on his face when I just calmly told him to duck off and started packing up my tools was priceless. I was already planning to give notice anyway, and had already made arrangements on another job. So just told the new employer that I would be available early and went on my way. I never have found out what happened to the GM, the kid, or the company after that. Frankly, don't really care. I do know the GM told the owner that it was my fault due to the way the owner treated me when I came in to pick up my final check, and the GM hovered over me to make sure I didn't get a chance to talk to the owner about what was really going on, escorting me in and out. I left laughing at him. Story 32. I got my first job as a cashier at a trashy Circle K next to a shady bar. Not a ducking day would go by without some creep commenting on my then very obviously underage appearance. I assumed it was normal. I had to deal with smokers having breakdowns because I didn't have their brand, annoying gambling addicts clogging up the line at peak hours to validate and rebuy 20-plus tickets a day, and drunks coming in and eating things before paying. I was also expected to stay 45 minutes after my shift to sort recycled beer bottles. One day when I was about 3 months in, I was kept 5 extra hours without prior notice because a coworker had an accident and my manager wouldn't want to call someone else in. So I finished in the middle of the night and was set to start again at 5 a.m. on Saturday. You can just imagine how a Friday night next to a bar looks like. I was just about to finish my soul-sucking shift when a kid threw up on the floor. Didn't bother to show up the next day. On the bright side, I got a job at a fast food joint, and turns out dealing with harassment and theft isn't all that normal in student jobs. Story 33. I do kind of regret it because I wish I'd been more professional, bud. I worked at a fancy restaurant for my city's nicest hotel, great food that I still yearn for, and awesome coworkers. The head manager was such a sweetheart. The assistant manager was a pain. I don't know why he didn't like me. I think he associated me with the fact the 2 waitresses he sent to train me both stopped coming in, so I never got any training and learned the job and menu by myself. He was never satisfied and started yelling at me 2 weeks after I'd been there, stating I should know everything by now. I had asked him several times for some actual training, but never seemed to get it. Now my job was hostess/waitress/food runner as a hostess. I would seat people, give them menus, take room service orders, and run them up. I had a few bumps along the way, but I had a handle on the job, but he was extremely harsh to me. The head manager had talked to him a few times, but I think it didn't sink in. Now my boyfriend also worked there, and we also lived together and would watch me come home in tears sometimes. But the assistant manager would tear me to shreds before I left, listing all the mistakes I did that day, even if they were tiny. I forgot a single fork on a table, and I did not hear the end of it. But this time, it was like a week straight he saw this and was getting upset like any good boyfriend would. Anyways, the fateful night was a little busy, but it was the ending hours, so it slowed down. I was proud of myself because I hadn't made a single mistake, and then the phone rang for room service. I was in the middle of taking an order when a new hire suddenly started asking me questions, and when I tried to direct her over to the assistant manager, he got mad at me and started yelling. Long story short, I forgot the room number because I had like 3 different conversations going on. He went on a tirade about this and started calling me names as I was making the drinks at the bar, and I don't know what it was he said that made me think, I can't do this anymore. I don't deserve getting crap on like this, but it happened. I just gave him a look when I set the drinks and asked him if had better things to be doing, and he said some snide remark that just pissed me off. So I took the soda hose that's behind the bar and sprayed him with it. Then I dumped the drinks I made into the ice so they couldn't use it to make more drinks. I grabbed my crap and left. I started crying on the way home because the weight of everything hit me. Boyfriend saw this and was enraged and got his bike and left before I could tell him what happened. He told the assistant manager he was a piece of crap and left. I only regret doing this because my boyfriend lost a job. Other than that, no regrets. Story 34. I once worked in a pretty fancy hotel as a waiter. They had these crates that go through these industrial dishwashers, and they were in really bad shape. The Pol stick was all SCD up and had sharp edges. So one time, like the retard I am, obliterated my finger on them, getting my finger stuck in one of the holes and peeling the skin of like a carrot about to be turned into a salad. I played it cool and went to the kitchen staff to ask for a bandage. They opened the first aid kit, which was empty, so they proceeded to give me a paper towel and some duct tape, which was okay, IMO. I'll treat it properly at home. But the boss decided I could still work the remaining 5. 5 HRs of my shift, serving people plates with a blood-soaked tampon that was my middle finger. Story 35. Worked at large wireless retailer. Said retailer employed terrible leadership at the store. That's a complete other story on its own. The assistant manager would closely pace in circles around my customers and I every single time I was in a sale. So much that customers would ask me why he's being so creepy. Anywho, said retailer also had a huge push for aggressively selling a TV service to people who didn't want it, weren't fit for it. One of my previous customers, who bought literally everything I offered her last time, mind you, came in to ask me a few questions about her iPhone. My territory sales manager, your typical douchey scumbag territory sales manager, was off snickering in the corner with the assistant manager. Randomly out of the blue, my territory sales manager came up from behind me and put his arm on my shoulder and said, "You better sell her everything we've got, including said TV service." He then gave a half grin and walked away. My customer goes, what was that about? I have already spent so much money here. I like you, John Doe, but who the hell was that guy? I told her who he was. It didn't help that I had been boiling for the last 5 months at that place. Between the crafty leadership, joke of coaching they tried on me, and unethical sales strategies they were trying to make me do. After the incident, I was absolutely fuming inside. It was lunchtime for me. So I'm sitting there at lunch contemplating my entire employment at this place and how awful it really was to be there. Asterisk, asterisk, and then it came to me. In my head, I said, "Duck this." I quit. Asterisk, asterisk, I made up my mind and was walking out. I wiped my work phone, took off my keys and uniform, and left them in the back room. Typically, I go down the street for lunch, so leaving the store on break was not out of the ordinary. I left for lunch, said duck that place, and never came back. It may not sound eventful, but it was so nice to shaft said scummy wireless company who created an absolutely awful work experience for me. Story 36. I worked as a server at a bar during college. The head bartender each day was in charge of assigning tables to the server. There was one bartender who really didn't like me, and every time she worked, she would give me the worst tables so that I wouldn't make as much in tips. She also did the scheduling. She started only scheduling me for slow times early in the day, like during lunch, when we would have 50% off lunch specials. It sucked, but fair enough. She does the scheduling, and I needed the money. Well, it just got worse and worse until I was barely making minimum wage, even though I was making close to $20 an hour when I started. One day, during a slow lunch, I was working with a different bartender. When the bartender's shift ended, the other bartender who did the scheduling came in to take over. I was serving a large table of probably 15 people, probably the best table I had had in a week or so. She saw this and decided to reassign tables and work as a server, as well as bartender. She of course took my table and said it was now hers, even though I had been serving them for about an hour and they were almost done with their meal. This wasn't the first time, but it was the last straw for me. I went up to the table, explained the situation, and instead of just transferring the table, I cashed them out, which they were happy to do. So I collected the cash tip, told the bartender, "Duck you." I quit, and walked out with the tip from the table and never talked to anyone at that bar again. I found a better job the next day. Story 37. When I was 16, I worked at a sandwich shop. Our manager got promoted to a bigger shop we were opening up and had to fill the manager position. My first day with this guy, I come in and he said I had a beard. Again, I was 16, so there could not have been much, and it was never mentioned before. He handed me a disposable razor and told me to go to the store bathroom and shave. No shaving cream. Yeah, right. I told him no and went on with my job. Later that shift, I was written up for not following directions. Understandable. But the note read, F& ļņķa THIS, not follow directions. 2 mistakes in 1 sentence. I was so blown away how I was working for someone so educationally inept and literally said, "Duck this, I quit." Story 38. Work behind a bar in a pub. Should have quit the night. A drunk threw a punch at the heavily pregnant landlady, and it descended into a massive fight. But the police couldn't be called because it was a lock-in, illegally serving after hours. Instead, quit the night the bosses had decided not to bother turning up for their shift, but send a friend instead, who just wanted to go to bed at the end of the evening and hurried me through clearing up. I got an irate call from the landlord the next day about a broken glass in a part of the pub I knew I'd left spotless, and just thought, nah. Story 39. I put in my resignation after 5 years there, and on my very last day, they wanted me to train the lead tech on everything I did. I had already done this twice before. I was making minimum wage, and she was making at least $13/hour, so I said no. I was told by the director, "Is this really how you want to leave? It's very unprofessional and I'm disappointed in you." I cry easy, and this was like the 3rd or 4th time they'd made me cry in a year. So I went and packed up my stuff, left my badge, and went home. I started at 10 and was out by like 11:30. It was just the final straw of a ducked-up year and a half of stress, hate, and anxiety. Duck that job, duck those people, and duck my previous supervisor and director. Story 40. I worked at Sonic Drive-In while I was in high school. It was absolutely terrible. Every summer, the AC would go out, and it was absolute hell working in the cramped kitchen in between a 400 degrees Fahrenheit fryer and grill. The cooks in the kitchen made at most $8.50 an hour, while the car hops, waiters, waitresses on roller skates, averaged around $18 an hour after tips. There was no tip share. One day in the middle of my shift, I got a call from a friend asking if I wanted to come work with him detailing cars starting at $10 an hour. I asked him if I could start tomorrow, and he said yes. I immediately went to the manager and said, "Duck this, I quit." Story 41. After 12 years straight of soul-crushing, constant uphill battle, at work with a 2.5, 3-hour daily commute, I felt like I had enough of everything, and I've resigned to take a break. My last day is Friday, and I can't wait to just enjoy some time for myself doing the things I actually love, like making music. If this sounds familiar, it's because I posted about this in another Ask Reddit thread last week, and I'm still here counting down my final few days. Story 42. Made me clean, dried out moldy milk that was turning black and icy without gloves and paper towels. Did 5 mins my hands had ice all over them. Told my boss I need gloves otherwise I can't do anymore. He told me to get back to work and quit whining. Duck you Tesco. Find someone else to clean your nasty milk. P.S. Boss said I was the first to clean it in over 2 years. Great work for a Christmas temp. Story 43. Years ago, I was an SM at a GameStop. My daughter was 5 months old, living with my in-laws at the time. I was scheduled to work a Saturday night. The only problem was my in-laws were going to a Christmas party, and my wife had slipped on some ice and had a hairline fracture in her arm. Hard to take care of a 5-month-old when you have a broken arm. So I put in a schedule change with our third key, assistant manager, to swap morning and afternoon shifts for the Saturday. No problem, right? Our district manager blocked it. I reminded him I had to watch my daughter. Still got blocked. I was pretty furious. Saturday shift comes. Guess what? We get an ice storm and I'm unable to actually get out of the driveway. I don't even remember who had to cover what. A week later, it was my birthday. My mom and brother were in town from out of state. I hadn't seen either of them for a while. Great. Definitely don't want to be working my birthday evening with family in from out of town. Again, I asked to swap to a morning shift. Again, our district manager blocked it. I appealed to our store manager, who said it was out of his hands. So I just set my keys down on a table and told him I was done. No grand speeches or moments. I was just furious. It's literally the only job I've ever walked off. I was unemployed for another month after that before I found another job. I loved the people I worked with, but ducked that district manager. I still hate him to this day. Story 44. Was 18. Worked at Burger King. They tried to schedule me last minute for Saturday night. I said, no, I have a party tonight. My boss, Dennis, said on the phone, either come in or you're fired. I said, yes, sir. I'll be right there, sir. Duck Dennis. I went to the party. Had a blast. Went through the drive-thru around 3 a.m. Yelled and waved at Dennis through the drive-thru window as I drove off. Story 45. Manager wouldn't give me a 20-minute break despite having worked the past 13 hours with no break. Her superior swore at me when I asked to take the time, so I called her A and walked out. I was 23 and they said, good luck finding a new job with that personality. Well, I already had one and I got a new one real quick. I stand by it. Story 46. About 4 years ago, I worked at a very well-known chain restaurant, and I worked every damn position they had, from bussing to serving, to takeout to hosting, to making the damn bread. My management were the most underappreciative pieces of crap I've ever encountered. One day I woke up and realized I was extremely sick, but couldn't particularly afford a doctor's visit at that exact moment. So I figured I would stroll over to my job since I worked across the street so that I can give them a visual to my condition, since they wouldn't give a crap over the phone. It was hours before my shift, so I dragged myself to the manager's office looking like I was going to die at any moment. I explained my situation and was told, "I don't give a crap. You're the only one we have scheduled for this shift today." Delightful. Being the hard worker I am, I decided I was going to go in and not just no call, no show. Being the spiteful git I also decided that since they were ducking me, I was going to duck them. I waited for the entire restaurant to fill up and empty. I stared at every single filthy table, and I took my apron off, and I walked directly out the door. I got a plethora of angry calls and voicemails from my manager while I sat on my porch and smoked a big-ass joint. Duck them. Story 47. I worked for a preschool for a short while, and the great thing was that I was allowed to bring my toddler with me. She was a little younger than most of the kids, but no big deal. She sat for story time, got to learn her letters and colors early, and generally did what the other kids did. The older kids loved her, and pretty much made her the class mascot. Unfortunately, my supervising teacher had a problem with me bringing her. Not that I was focusing only on my child or that she was a distraction. It was just that bringing a child to a workplace, any workplace, was against her principles. She'd insinuate that I was a bad mom for working in the first place, and that I was neglectful for exposing my daughter to my place of employment, which again, was a ducking preschool. Finally, after she had had a particularly rough day, she went off on me for what a terrible mother I am, and how I should have my child taken from me, and that she'd be making a call to CPS and that I was fired. She didn't have that authority. I simply handed her my keys, told her to never contact me again, and walked out. Called the director that afternoon, filled her in, and thanked her for the opportunity. Supervising teacher got fired the next day. Story 48. I was working at a top bank in my country, and I'd recently finished an 18-month project to implement their new O&S and workers' comp system when I was regularly pulling 60-plus-hour weeks, and I'd recently been passed over for promotion. Then my department head at our yearly conference decides to ambush me with the announcement that we're completely scrapping the system I'd just implemented and going with something else. I flatly refused to be a part of that process, so the working group for it started without me. 6 months later, we're all working on our projects, and at an interim, managers all in. I was presenting my project, a different system implementation, and the replacement for my old system was also being presented. My presentation was basically talking through the challenges I was facing and being realistic about what could be achieved. Their presentation was basically a fairy tale about how easy this was going to be and how the new system would be in by XMS, about 5 months. This was hilariously laughable given bureaucracy at the bank. They'd be unlikely to even have provisional sign-off for funding by then. It took 5+ years all up for mine. My presentation was universally panned. Theirs was deemed amazing. I walked out, called a friend to see if he'd talk me out of it and make sure I wasn't being a complete idiot. And when he didn't, I quit the next day. The managers were still in there all in. And from what I hear, crap hit the fan when they realized that their only sysadmin for the current system was leaving. When everyone else found out I wasn't leaving for another job and had just quit flat out, a lot started questioning their own experiences, and I think within 12 months there was 80% plus turnover. Only person I know that stayed was a senior manager getting way more money than she deserved, and a friend who was planning on having a child and wanted to cash in on the generous maternity leave Good Times would recommend. Story 49. I worked in a hospital as a labor and delivery nurse, hired for the night shift. On New Year's Eve of 1987, I was the only one working in L&D, common there, but you had no help. It was storming badly that night with near whiteout conditions. In 12 hours, I had 15 babies born during an electrical outage in which the generators failed. I delivered 5 on my own with a flashlight in my mouth while waiting on a doc to get there. 2 were C-sections with only me to assist, serve as a scrub nurse, and circulate. I had 1 hemorrhage, 2 drug-addicted moms, and 2 sets of twins. All babies and moms were alive, admitted to their floors, rooms cleaned, instruments onto soak, and paperwork finished by 7 a.m. My head nurse called me on the carpet for not clocking out to take a break. I told her that I didn't get a break, that L&D nursing is 1-2 ratio, 1 RN to 2 patients, and she was violating safety codes. I threw my keys at her and told her I was called the state. I quit that morning. A week later, they were fined, OB had been shut down, and she was jobless. My next job was as a head nurse. She had no idea I was the one interviewing her when she applied, but needless to say, I didn't hire her. Story 50. I once applied for a jewelry store and got to the final stage of interviews. They started to explain the commission structure, and their main point was all employees must hit the base numbers. And if you don't, you could be fired, which I wasn't concerned with because I have sales experience and I usually far exceeded expectations. I explained this and they said, well, once you pass the minimum, if it's close to the end of the month, we usually share our sales so everyone makes the minimum. So basically, they wanted to take commissions from the hard workers and give them to people who didn't earn them so they wouldn't miss their quotas. They offered me the job, I politely declined and left. So technically I never worked there, but I think I dodged a bullet. Story 51. I was a housekeeper in a hotel. Love, love, love cleaning. Please don't knock it. I was also in laundry, which is much fun. We needed more staff, and a coworker said she knew someone who was looking for a job and is a single mom. Of course, she had a brief interview and was hired. She showed up each day smelling of alcohol and was manipulative. My boss kept her as she felt bad for her. Things would go wrong. This woman would blame me, and the manager genuinely believed her. She said I planted things in her rooms to make it look like she didn't clean, etc., which was ridiculous. But security cameras would indeed show me going in her rooms because I was authorized to check them for cleanliness. Maybe there was so-groupsing I could have done, I'm not sure. I was truly happy and proud to go there every day. She wrecked it for me. I put in my notice and couldn't even get through those 2 weeks. I said to my boss that if it was all truly me, then it would stop when I walked out the door on my last day, but I was done. Apparently things have gotten much worse, and I guess she left and fled the province for some guy with money, which I do not think is a good idea for her kids. I miss my cleaning very much. I miss seeing the customers in the morning and greeting them with a smile, wishing for them to have a happy and safe day. Now I am saving for a car and some equipment to hopefully clean homes in my city as my own business. Story 52. 3 years ago, I was working for a screen printing company. I had agreed to work there and close down my own operation, with the contingency that during the summer I would be able to leave at 4:30 on Wednesdays to race with my team. I race sailboats competitively. The owner agreed without blinking an eye, which I took as a stand-up guy wanting to have a pleasant work environment. I'd started there in the fall, and everything was going well. The work was okay, and I was getting along with the small team of people working there. We had some long nights over the winter, which was fine as there isn't much to do when the snow is flying in our city. Summer came, and it was time for the boss to hold up his end of the bargain. A few Wednesdays went by without issue, but after those weeks, things got tense. It started with dirty looks that I was leaving and soon became verbal cues that I should stay. I had a commitment to the team, which was a bigger part of my life, so I always insisted that I had to leave. Well, one situation got a bit too hot, and I decided to walk out. I told the guy that I was leaving, and if he didn't want me to come back, I understood. Fast forward a few hours, the race is done for the night, and we are debriefing our performance over drinks. In these debriefs, we all get a chance to speak about the race, while everyone else is silent. It comes to my turn, and I let the team know that I quit my job so I could come racing. Everyone falls over backwards laughing, some thinking I'm crazy, some giving me high fives. Once the laughter clears out, the owner of the boat looks at me and says, "Oh good, now you work for me. It's been a great 3 years working for my current company." Story 53. I worked at a Denny's, and we had an assistant manager that was extremely full of himself. I've got a booty call from this gorgeous *tka THIS redhead that I'd been trying to get with for months, and she wants me over at her place at 11:30 p.m. at the latest, and she stressed that. I get off at 11, so I was working hard, getting all of my side work done, making sure there was no silverware left to roll, etc. I get everything done and have no tables when my relief comes in. I get my bank transferred over, hang up my apron, and start to clock out. Here comes this ducker. Hold on. Where are you going? I finished clocking out and said, "Going home. See you tomorrow." And he stops me and says, "What about this?" He opens the pie oven and it's disgusting. One of the waitresses skipped it on her side work. Tracy messed up. She's off the next few days, so you'll have to ask her about it Thursday, I said as I started to leave. "Get over here. Now," he says in his most authoritative voice. I turned around and he pointed at the oven. "You're going to clean this oven from top to bottom. Then you're going to go clean the dessert cabinet. After that, you can go ahead and clean out the ice cream freezer. I want them spotless." I stared at him for several seconds before flicking my name tag off and throwing him the bird. "Duck this, and duck you," I said. The look on his face made it so worth it. It was clear he wasn't used to being talked to that way. In that moment, I wasn't worried about my Denny's career. It felt so good. It's one of my fondest memories. Story 54. Getting yelled at for sugruxing I forgot to do. Can't remember what it was, but it was a very minor thing. Excuse me for being the sole reason why this department is still open. Working 10, 13-hour days, not getting help during rushes, and being cast of to the side. I was the only person working in a deli at a grocery store in a town of 1,500 people. After the yelling, I just walked out. The deli was closed for at least a few months after I quit. I clocked out about 15 minutes into my shift with no one else that knew how to work in the deli. Story 55. Worked as an intern for 5-ish years at a company. 6 months before I graduate, I start discussing seriously my full-time employment upon graduation, and all I got was, Put your resume in when you graduate, and we'll see what happens. Wouldn't tell me anything else, except that it wasn't just a formality for paperwork's sake. What really pissed me off was when I told my boss I was quitting. He complained that he had positions he needed to fill, and it's too bad I'm not staying. Story 56. I took a job pushing cards at my local grocery store because I needed money and just got fired. I was getting minimum wage at the time, $8.75. It was extremely hot one summer day, over 105 degrees. I took an extra break to sit down and the lead came out, then proceeded to write me up. I waited for him to finish at his office, then told him I quit. Look on his face was priceless. Story 57. I used to work for Goodwill collecting donations when I was 19. 20, not the worst gig, but I didn't get along with the GM. She had that bad GM attitude, like get you're a GM of a Goodwill, anyone could do your job, basically wanted things done as quickly and unsafely as possible, and I would always tell her no, we will get it done in as timely a manner as we could do it safely. One day I'm driving the forklift back and forth moving Gaylord's filled donations to the warehouse. A spool of fishing line had fallen out of one Gaylord and tangled behind the forks. I didn't notice for maybe 20 minutes. Finally, notice and hop off and try to untangle it from the forklift. It was strewn all over the place. The GM comes to the back with a new hire on a tour. She asked me, "What happened here?" "Me fishing line got caught under the forklift." "Oh, okay." I head home. No big deal. Come in next day, warehouse manager calls me into office. GM sitting in office. Asks me to close door and sit down. Warehouse manager slides a paper across the desk. It's an incident report, disciplinary action against me, claiming I was playing around with fishing line, and that when the GM came back, she tripped and almost injured herself. I looked at her and said, "This never happened." She immediately goes into rage mode. "Are you calling me a liar?" Me, "Yeah." Her, "You are irresponsible and unprofessional." I start laughing her, "We are sending you home for the day. When you come in, I expect you to put a smile on your face and get your work done safely." Me, verbatim, "You are a lying, conniving Nazi," stood up and walked out. Story 58. My first job working at a butchery in New Zealand. I was employed for 3 hours after school each day to come in and clean the block, large wooden object used to cleave meat. All the knives, the floors, etc., etc. The main counter for the shop was one of them large windowed, chilled display case. In the center of this display case was a drain for water and blood. The drain led to a large bucket that needed to be collected, emptied, and cleaned every day. One fine day, I finished cleaning the knives and the block and the floor, and I head into the front of the shop to collect the bucket. But it's only half full today. I have no idea why, but I say, "It's half full today." The boss came over and said, "Yep, I bet she's blocked again. Looks like some meat got stuck in a drain." He then proceeded to hand me the end of the hose pipe running from the counter to the bucket and says, "Here, suck on this to get clear the pipe." I said to, "You're not paying me enough to put that in my mouth." He got upset and said I was lucky to have a job close to school. I just put my stuff down, took off my oversized apron, started to walk out, didn't say a word or come back ever again. Story 59. Actually, I had to duck this. I'm glad I quit. Instead, I was 14 and worked at a small local bagel shop after school. I was supposed to come into work, but instead I called them and told them that I was quitting. A couple hours later, during what would have been my shift, the shop got robbed at gunpoint. They held a gun to the 17-year-old manager's head and demanded money from the safe. I didn't know the combination to the safe, so if he did that to me, maybe he would have shot me. That manager went to my school, and it seemed to have traumatized her. Story 60. I used to deliver for Google Express, which delivers a lot of products in bulk from Costco. One time I had about 50 deliveries to make and a total of 100 plus parcels. They were mostly 24 packs of water, Gatorade, and beer cases. I checked the scale before loading and the scale read 3,000 plus elbs, and the van can only carry about 2,000 pounds. I brought that up to my manager and he said I can't leave anything behind at all. I load up the van and take off. About 20 minutes after I left the warehouse, the engine light turns on, so I call my manager and let him know, and he hits me with, "What did you to it?" I loaded 3,000 plus LBS in it, like you asked me to," I said. And he replies with, "Whatever, we will deal with you later." WTF? At that point, I was already annoyed. But then he calls me back and tells me to hurry up with my first 5 deliveries so I can take a few stops from my coworker's route because he's not feeling good. I ducking lost it. I told him to go duck himself. I quit, hung up, and sent him the location where I was leaving the van, and that's it. Never heard from them again, and I still received my last paycheck. Sorry for my broken English. I am still learning. Edit. Thank you everyone for your kind words. I don't usually type a lot of stuff because some people like to make fun of misspelling or grammar errors. Your words really encourage me. Story 61. I worked at Outback Steakhouse for 2 years growing up. We were a busy restaurant, but began to have lighter staffed shifts after a cut down from corporate saying we could perform the same with less bodies on the floor. I always had a partner with me dishwashing, but after the cutbacks, it was a solo mission. One day, the dishes piled up so high, and there was nothing I could do because the dish machine was broken and I was by myself. My boss asked me, "What the duck is going on back here, kid?" Why are you being such a damn turtle? I waited until my boss finished his cussing rampage and went back into his office. I took my apron off and put it on the dish counter. I walked out of that place and never went back. Ever. I feel bad about the nice coworkers I left behind. They cared about me a lot, more than they should have. I was a very troubled teenager. Story 62. I got called in on my day off. Boss yelled at me, "Why aren't you here?" I told her because I wasn't scheduled that day. Looking at the schedule and seeing that I was correct, still yelling, "Well, I need someone in here." I let her know that I would come help her out, but that I lived 15 minutes away. I left immediately and was steps away from entering the front door 10 minutes later when my cell phone rings. "Boss, where the duck are you?" I walked in with the phone still stuck to the side of my face, looked her dead in the eye and said, "I quit," and walked right back out. Sadly, until that day, I had actually really liked working for this manager, but her behavior and verbal abuse that day was so bad, asterisk and asterisk, while so in the wrong, that I couldn't ever imagine working another shift for them again. Story 63. Unworked night shift at a 7-Eleven in the middle of the part of Copenhagen, where all the bars and discotheques are. Was robbed 4 times in the first week I was there, had double-digit people vomit in the store, and were given crap by at least 50 customers over high prices that I had nothing to do with setting. The 4th guy that robbed the place, so high on uppers that he moved his head like it was on a ducking gyro, threatened me with a ducking plastic bottle that he smashed on the counter. When I didn't react quickly enough, because I was trying to get my head around what the duck he was doing, he lunged across the counter and tried to hit me with that stupid ducking bottle. It was the final straw after all the crap I'd taken the last week. I escorted him outside, in a way I'm not proud of, and then I closed the store and went home. The owner called me like 100 times over the next few days, and I just let it ring. Eventually, he sent a letter about calling the cops if I didn't return the clothing and keys. I didn't, and he didn't. Worst ducking job I've ever had. Story 64. Underpaid, working 10+ hours a day, getting 25 emails an hour, where it took an hour to research and figure out one email due to how inefficient and outdated the company procedures were. It wasn't possible to respond to all of them. Every month, someone would quit, and instead of hiring a new person, they just split up that guys work among the rest of us. Gave my 2 weeks and never looked back. They begged me to stay for 2 more months until they could get more people. Oh, Mao. Should have done that in the first place, idiots. This was a huge, well-known company too. Story 65. Roughly 10 or so years ago. I was in high school still, and I was working my first job at Taco Bell. I was about a year into my employment when one Taco Sunday, I don't know if they still do this anymore, but it was a day with extremely discounted tacos. I had enough. There were roughly 10 people working, most of them cleaning for a big inspection coming up. There were another 4 people in the front, 1 person on drive-thru, and the other 3 just standing around socializing. I was the only one stationed making the orders. I had a dozen orders, all having ridiculous orders of tacos apiece. I called for help multiple times. No one came. The manager knew I was struggling and never once sent someone to help or came to help themselves. Not too long into this bullcrap, I took off my hat, walked up to the group laughing and talking in the front, handed them my hat, and calmly said that I was quitting. Everyone just looked at me shocked as I walked out of the store, never to return. Story 66. I worked in a big retail store for about 2 years. I was the only female to work in the electronics section. Not too bad. My coworkers were all super nice, but at times I had to really fight to belong. The managers were the issue. They tried forcing me into shifts in different work areas because they needed people there. I'm all for helping out, but I figured 1, they should have talked to me beforehand instead of these shifts just showing up, and 2, the hours would be split between a couple people so that one person wasn't being singled out. Nope, I was singled out. These sections also so happened to be traditionally female sections, beauty and clothing. So here I was the most senior employee in my section, being the only one given full weeks in a work area I had never worked and have no training in, without anyone talking to me about it, and they refused to say why. So when a schedule came out where I had 40 hours, 20 more than I can work due to school, in the clothing department, I first asked my coworkers if they had shifts outside the electronics department. They all said no, having full hours there. I then later that day put my notice in and told them under no circumstances I was going to work those shifts. Best decision of my life. Story 67. I did roofing in during the summer in middle school, and BTW roofing sucks. It's hot as hell. I was getting paid $5 an hour, cash under table. Well, I found out at school that roofers are supposed to make a lot of money. I thought I was doing good for my age, so didn't make a big deal about it. That weekend, I'm at a job, carrying shingles up a ladder to the other guys. The homeowner is laying on a float in his pool and yells, "I hope y'all aren't hot up there," and starts laughing. I told my boss he needed to find other help and climbed off the roof. Walked over the pool and cannonballed in. Homeowner was pissed. I got chewed out by my parents. I felt great about it. Story 68. One summer during college, I found a job selling $1,500 vacuums. The company offered a free room cleaning. We'd go and clean the room in the process, trying to make the sale. I quit within the first week. A few of the things I hated about the job. We had to sing a song together at the start of each shift, and they publicly called out who had made what sales the day before. As the new guy, I had to shadow a veteran. The guy assigned to me liked to drive 120 miles per hour down the highway, weaving super aggressively between cars. I'm an aggressive driver, and I was extremely uncomfortable. I was trying to sell a $1,500 vacuum to people who clearly couldn't afford $1,500 vacuums. But the thing that made me say, "Duck this, I quit." Finally, on Friday of my first week, I got my first sale. I did the pitch and demonstration, and even the veteran I was with said that it was all mine. When I got my paycheck, I didn't have the commission. I called and asked, and they said, "Since veteran was with you, he gets the commission." Story 69. Worked for a very large trucking company for many years in cargo claims. One summer, we went to deliver a full load of fresh beef products to a warehouse. When the driver opened the door, he was hit by a massive wave of heat. He closed the door, told the receiver he took the wrong trailer, and came back to our facility. I go out to look at the reefer unit and product. The setting was right, but it was blowing air at 110 F. After doing a reefer download, thermoking refrigeration unit, we could see that there was a sensor failure, and it had been heating the meat at 110 F for 3 days. I'm not comfortable delivering it. The load is worth around $250,000 CAD, so we are on the hook for it. VP of the company tells us to hold the product in a new trailer and cool it, and deliver it once it cools down and not to say anything. After some internal discussion, someone finally convinces him not to deliver it and fall on the sword. Didn't quit, but after that day I was like, nope, can't do this anymore. Eventually found a new job and much happier. Have many stories like this. It's unreal what these transport companies do to the food we eat. Story 70. I remember when I started a new job in one factory that was producing windows. It was extremely hard work. Start at 6 a.m., finish at 4 p.m., 10 hours of physical exercise like carrying 200 pounds windows. So on the first day, there was a breakfast break, and as I sat with coworkers, I thought to myself that this job is crazy, and I want to leave it immediately. And on the opposite side of the table, there was this old smart-ass worker who looked at me, focused, and said loudly, "He won't last longer than 1 week here." But I did. I worked there for 8 days just to win my internal battle with this old git. Story 71. So it wasn't a straight up, "I quit this company altogether," but I was working contract security, and my supervisor tries to write me up for leaving 30 minutes after my shift was over, when my relief was talking to someone and wasting time before reporting to their post. I walked out, called, and told them I wasn't signing the write-up papers because they didn't have the stone to write me up in person. I called the branch manager the next morning and explained everything to him. I requested reassignment, and then had to provide proof that the guard who was late was my relief, which my supervisor forgot. She texted me in confirmation before lying to the branch manager and telling him that she wasn't my relief and that I abandoned my post. Story 72. Not me, but I watched this situation go down with my coworker and our boss. Coworker had just been dumped by his girlfriend and was pretty broken up about it. He came to work pissed, and it definitely showed. I can't remember exactly the words that were said, but our boss made a comment along the lines of, "This is why your girlfriend dumped your ass." Coworker walked right out of the door. Story 73. A long time ago, I got a summer job working in a factory. The factory made car windshields, and my job was to wipe it down with hexane, while my coworker applied a material to the outside of the glass. I wore gloves when dealing with the hexane, but after a few days, I started getting hives on my body and having nosebleeds. I asked my boss if I could switch workstations because I was having issues. They refused and said it must be the dry air in the factory. I used to live in AZ. I've dealt with dry air. I ended up passing out in the caf at lunch. And when I came to, I gave them crap. They offered to let me work somewhere else, but I told them to duck off. I was leaving. Story 74. Early in my web dev career, got a job working on a website. Office was a tiny little room with 3 of us crammed in there. Hardly any direction on how things worked, and they had me working in a language I didn't know, and they knew I didn't know, but figured I could pick up quickly. I hated it. One day, the 3 of us came in from lunch about 5 minutes late, and we got scolded like children. One day, I walked past my boss's office, Dr. Close, and he was yelling at a developer loud enough to sound like a lunatic. I was like, duck this place. That was 6 weeks in. Got another job and stayed at that place for 7 years. Story 75. Electrician here. I used to work at a meat factory. They took butchered meat and processed it into consumer and commercial products. The maintenance manager was a complete. I was unjamming equipment, repairing the leaking roof and snaking drains filled with rotting meat. Not electrician's work. After about 8 months, the manager told me I would be installing racking in the blast freezer, 25C, alone. After 3 days of working in alternately minus 25 and plus 30. As I moved racking in and out, he came into the lunchroom and told me that I was taking too long and should have this done by the end of the day. I told him, duck you, I quit, and then I went to HR and quit. 100% would recommend. Story 76. Was told that multiple members of the board agreed behind closed doors. after a grueling interview process that I wouldn't be given a promotion because I was a recently married young woman. They should be happy they didn't say it to my face. I felt like I had the biggest balls telling them I wasn't interested in staying beyond a 2-week period for them to find a replacement. They never did. When they came to me with a laughable offer of more work, same pay, and no upward mobility, they deserved way less after I had poured my heart, time, and so much more into that place. Story 77. I worked in a small factory bakery. Instead of a prover, a walking fridge but set to 35 degrees and 80% humidity, they had a big metal box with 2 old electric frying pans in it. One explode. We looked behind and there was water all over the floor with the 2 old frayed extension cords sitting in it. Boss, walk over and unplug those cords me. Nope, the wires could still be live. Turn off the power to the building, boss. I don't have time for that. Just do it, or you don't have a job. I just walked out and went home. Story 78. The corporate chef decided to change some stuff at the restaurant we worked at, but it quickly became clear the guy didn't know how to cook. He didn't know blue cheese was supposed to be moldy, and he just said the weirdest crap. One night in the line, he was coaching us with stuff like telling us not to tempt chicken fingers in the fryer because they float when they're done, etc. It wasn't just that, but it was at that moment I realized the people in charge were idiots. Story 79. I was a dishwasher at a privately owned high-end restaurant. My GF and I had purchased tickets for Manson, and I put in a request for 2 days off, a month in advance. I had mentioned it to the EC, who had said, "We'll work Saugrugzing out." 2 weeks from the days, I mentioned it to the sous chef, who informed me no one gets any day they want off. He had just come back from a week's vacation, actually tried to give me attitude for mentioning it. I turned in my notice then and there. Story 80. I was lead prep cook for one of the richest restaurants in town. In the richest part of the whole city, I ran the entire prep department. From ordering and deliveries with merchants to training new prep cooks and keeping things moving smoothly. I was being paid less than their new dishwashers. I quit the very next morning, took my food processor that we were using because the restaurant's broke and they were too cheap to replace it, and left them high and dry on Father's Day weekend. So yeah, let's duck and discuss how much we're getting paid, everyone. Story 81. At age 18, I worked at a car dealership in the late 70s. As a car reconditioning guy, haircut policy. Boss caught me at the wrong time one day when he told me I needed a haircut. I yearned to grow it out. I thought, duck it, put down my cleaning tools and walked off the property. I'm bald today. Story 82. I worked at Harbor Freight Tools in high school, specifically my senior year. HFT is known for their tent sales. The tent sale weekend happened to line up with my high school graduation. If you call in during a tent sale, don't work, it was automatic termination. They wanted me to skip my high school graduation, so I quit instead. Story 83. Despite the 7 har of on your feet, no bathroom breaks, the overnight with $10/HR, having to scoop crap out of lavatories, having to work sick, having to throw 750 lbs, 1,000 lbs of trash, mostly ice, in bags 20 to 30 pounds each alone in 2-degree F weather, having a supervisor that hated me, and a 45 minutes drive to work, I had finally had enough when I got screamed at and threatened with termination because I forgot to get a hair under a toilet seat because I was being rushed. Duck National Aviation Services, Duck Southwest Airlines, and Duck Ului. Story 84. Worked in a kitchen as a porter. Was verbally abused every day and had stuff thrown at my face for fun. Last straw was being blamed for dirty plates when the boss's brand new dishwasher ducked up and left dishes worse than they went in. Walking to work next day, I looked at the building and thought, duck right off. Life's too short for that crap. Story 85, cooked at a mom and pop place. The GM would walk in 5 minutes before open and then told me the trainee and I would be the only cooks that day. She didn't tell us about the 12 parties scheduled for that day on top of a Saturday rush. Trainee and I drove around smoking a blunt, watching them try to find us. Story 86, I was interviewing for a nursing job at a dentist. I'd pretty much got the job and was being shown through the surgery and meeting everyone, and at the end of the day, the manager told me, okay, so such and such will show you how to do your makeup and maybe wear some earrings tomorrow. It was an interview, I was made up. I'm all for being well presented, but it's teeth, mate, not a salon. No. Story 87. When my boss insisted I work over the weekend, despite me having booked it off, so I could have a couple of days with my best friend before she moved to a different country. I explained I had cleared this week's prior, only to be told I was behaving like a quit on the spot and never looked back.